Well, this is an interesting one. So we're an international podcast today. Matt, tell the listeners where you currently are sitting.
I am in Newcastle, UK. It's that simple.
That's
But does
easy.
everybody know that Sage headquarter offices is here in Newcastle?
Mm. Spending some time at Sage's headquarters office, shaking the right hands.
Uh, yes. No, I was very generous. Got to meet with people both yesterday and today. Sort of chatting through some of the things that we're working on from a global perspective. It's been a really fun trip. I have to say, I really like Newcastle. It's a fun little town. I'm going to London tomorrow to the Sage offices there. I'm going to name drop. I have the opportunity to meet Steve Hare, so I'm pretty excited about that. And it's not just me; there's the whole slew of partners that get to. So it's not like a special invite or anything, but I'm pretty excited. I get to go to the England rugby, South Africa rugby match. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, it will be. I'm a little bit jealous, but that's okay. By the way, when you name drop in the future, don't tell people you're name dropping. Just do it.
No,
All
no, no,
right.
no, no, because that's not who I am.
And speaking of name dropping, so we have a guest who actually knows what she's talking about today. The release notes for just came out, which is, as everybody knows, it's just the most exciting thing in the world. So Karen, our guest here today, I would love to introduce, read your bio, do all that stuff, but I think it would be doing you a disservice. Karen, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are, the modern living legend in the accounting space.
Love it. Sure. I'm Karen Penhallegon. I know the real reason is you didn't want to try to say my last name, so it's okay.
I
But
have gotten really good at avoiding names that I can't pronounce.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a director at Eisner Ampers. I work with Emily in our advisory service line, and I actually lead our Sage and Tech practice. I focus on the sales and implementation side of the practice. And it's funny that you say I'm the expert because I call myself an accountant by accident because started out in the technical technology area. I have a computer science undergrad degree, but decided I didn't want to sit behind a computer 12 hours a day and bang out code. So I got an MBA and kind of happened into a job working with ERPs I'll say about 15 years ago. I'm not going to get more specific than that. Um, so you won't know exactly how old I am, but just started working on ERPs and accounting ever since then. So 15 years, all different clients, all different industries, and started with Sage Intacct about 8 years ago. And I'll say I love Sage Intacct. So definitely obsessed. I'm the nerd who reads the release notes as soon as they come out every time.
Well, something interesting you said there, something I didn't know, but I just learned when I was in Canada, is you have the reverse path of Aaron Harris, who went to school to be an accountant and turned into what is now the CTO for Sage. So there's a similarity there.
I've never thought of that because I don't consider myself in the same arena as Aaron Harris, who is a technology genius. But yeah, I would say it's the opposite. I'm far removed from the technical side of things, and really just stick mainly to accounting and accounting software.
And you mentioned you didn't want to say specifically how long you've been in the game. Let's just leave it at you've been in the game long enough to be an expert. How about that?
I
Just
like
long
that.
enough, like just by like a couple
Yes.
days, just like by the
Yes.
hair.
Just
of your-
barely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
I
you have.
recently celebrated my 21st birthday again. That's what I'll say.
So
Oh,
every year,
Happy
what
birthday.
version are
21st.
we on?
Yeah, every year.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
version?
It's been a
are we
while.
on?
It's been a few of those, but it's okay.
So
Yeah.
let me get this
Oh.
right. You've been working with Intacct for 8 years now, which
Mhm.
puts you pre-acquisition. So you started with
Yes.
Intacct before Sage purchased Intacct.
Yes. So actually, when I started my career, it was with Sage 100. Has used that fun software. It's still around. But yes, we took on Intacct about 2 years before Sage acquired them. So I've kind of had the pre-Sage and the post-Sage experience.
Have you found like a big difference? You know what I mean, like pre versus post acquisition, because not a ton of people have like a lot of really long term experience and being able to see kind of both sides of that.
I definitely have seen differences. I'll say on the good side, Sage has brought a lot of investment into the product, and so the speed of enhancements has certainly greatly been enhanced by them. On the other side of that, Intacct has a very friendly community, and I think that's something that Sage on the partner side was missing. And so Intacct is sort of bringing that also into the Sage environment. So we're very cooperative with other partners versus competitive. I think that's something that's really important, not just for us and our relationships, but for our customers and clients, because it means we're not internally fighting over things. Instead, we're focusing on what is the best solution for that customer.
Yeah. But even from a user experience, I mean, I came in, I think it was 2018, 2019, when we became a partner. I've seen a big change in kind of the user experience, the UI of Intacct. How different? What are the different iterations that you've seen there?
So I've gone through about, I would say, 4 major UI changes, at least 3 major UI changes. Um, I think a lot of that little back office sage knowledge that I've found is that they actually hired a number of designers from Intuit. So
Yep.
those for your QuickBooks users out there. And so I've seen a definite shift from, when we first came on with Intacct, it was very much an accountant's program, if that makes sense. So similar to what I saw with Sage 100, you kind of had to have some knowledge to know where you're going. Now it's a much more user-friendly experience, and I think that's due to that change in focus from not only being a great accounting program, but just putting it into something that people other than accountants can use. And so it's been a big, big change in that user-friendliness for sure.
Another Did You Know, and I guess maybe we should call it the Did You Know podcast. You know that Dan Miller was originally Intuit and was a developer for Intuit before he came over to Intacct and was one of the first founders, I believe. I don't have the exact facts around that, but he came from Intuit, and there's still a pull. So one of the reasons I was in Canada and here in Newcastle is we're launching Sage Intacct Accountants. So it's the SIEP global version, and I've been working kind of behind the scenes for the last year, and it's that same kind of mentality. And one of the people that are leading that charge out of Canada just came over from Intuit. And so you do see a lot of migration and what I would say is expertise grab from the different competitors, which I think is smart and speaks to that continued investment.
Leading the charge. Hold on, I want to steal that segue real quick because it was actually pretty good and completely unplanned, which I love. Part of the release notes. We're gonna go through some of the technical stuff if you guys don't mind because we have to hit it. It is what it is, unfortunately. But Sage Copilot. What are we thinking about that, Karen? What are your thoughts on Sage Copilot? Obviously, it's not rolled out yet to the masses, but have you heard any kind of rumblings on the street? Good, bad, ugly?
So I've seen a few demos of it as we've gone to different conferences and things. I am very excited. So some of the things that, especially in this kind of first very small beta release, that I'm really excited about is that it's going to integrate with the help system. So I joke with people that Intacct's help is actually helpful. So if you've been around the software world for a while, a lot of help systems are not that helpful. Intacct is actually really great. And so I love that Copilot is now going to be using that because that means any user can simply go type in their question and get access to all that great information that maybe they didn't realize was available to them. It's actually come up in a couple of conversations I've had recently with some prospects where they say, well, I wish I could do this. And I can now say, guess what? That's going to be possible with Copilot.
I keep saying, did you know? I thought that Sage Copilot was based on Microsoft Copilot because Microsoft was one of the first organizations to come out with their Copilot, and then you had Salesforce that had their Salesforce Einstein, but looked very much like Copilot. And then you saw, I don't know if you're familiar with Zapier, but Zapier had their Copilot. So I kind of assumed it was all Microsoft based. And it's not. It is now kind of the name that's being used generally in the marketplace, but each one of these organizations are building their own AI solutions within their products, and they're using multiple large learning applications to train and produce this capability. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, and I'll add if we're gonna go ahead and get on the technical side of things, if this is something that fascinates you, go look up Aaron Harris's talks that he gives on AI. But the really great thing about the way that Sage is approaching the AI field is that number one, they want to build trust. And so they want to make sure that the data they're getting is accurate. So they're not going out and using other people's models and language libraries and all of that. Instead, they're actually creating their own so that they know they can depend on it. They know what the data is. They can control hallucinations and all of those things. So I'll stay away from the technical side too much on that, but definitely go out if you're interested in that, and listen to Aaron Harris give some of his talks on AI. He's really a visionary in that space, and I think it's a great approach from Sage.
100% agree. 100% agree.
And by the way, that was almost non-technical at all, which I love. Believe me, I'm a non-technical person. I'm all about application, which is why, the release notes are they are what they are. Very technical, of course, but I want to get into some of the application components of it. And if we went through every single line item of these release notes, this could be a 4-hour journey, which I don't think we need to take anybody on. So if it's all right with the crew here, I think we just kind of hit to some of the more core component pieces of it and really more focus on the application of it. So, we broke it up into kind of a couple different areas that we really want to hit. First one, which, it sounds exciting, right? Let's talk about the customer and vendor reconciliation reports, which I know everyone is just like, will you please hit that? Because I've been waiting my entire life for somebody to talk about this. Karen, thoughts in that zone there. Unload on us. Tell us.
Let's let my nerdiness come out.
And
right
just high level, I think good for our audiences to know, Sage releases their releases in categories. So there's strength and financials, there's control and compliance, there's platform efficiency, and there's industry insights. So this feature specifically is going to be under the strength and financials.
Exactly. So this is something, again, it may not burn down the house with excitement, but I think it's a really important feature. So what it actually does, let's talk about what that feature actually is. They have created a new identifier. It's called the match sequence. And this is going to be similar to how cash management reconciliations work. But this match sequence in both AR and AP is going to link the invoice or bill to any credits and payments that are applied to it. And the reason that's important is because now they can build a report, and they have with this release that you can actually trace and reconcile every piece of the transaction. So before, it was not always the easiest to go figure out, especially if you're a company that has a lot of credits, and there are some industries that have tons of credits, flying around. It's not always easy to trace exactly where credits got applied and how an invoice actually got paid. And so that's where this is really going to be helpful for those users who have all those credits and maybe complicated payment structures. They can trace that back to the source.
And I would assume this is pretty big, especially for your guys' firm with construction real estate. I mean, when I was in that industry, not as an accounting firm, but actually in it, the amount of credits that you'd get and the way that your vendors would apply those versus the way you would apply. I remember countless, like every week I'm on the phone with them going like, okay, can we get our record straight? Can we figure out what's going on here? And so I think that's a big portion of this, I'd assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Construction is one of and we'll see actually when we get to industry insights, a lot of construction features coming out in this release. It's one of Sage's really big focuses. They've been in the construction industry for a long time, but bringing that industry into the modern times, if you will, with Sage Intacct. The other industry that I've seen a lot of traction with this sort of thing is in healthcare. That's another area where things can be quite complex. And so healthcare, definitely a space where they're going to see a lot of benefit from this.
And it's interesting how those different industries are impacted by things like this. So that's I mean, as accountants, that's so important to just the speed of our job and being more efficient at what we do. And so I think that speaks to that, even though it's not fun or exciting, it is very impactful.
And with the reconciliation component, do you think that it matters one way or the other? Is it more industry focused, or are we talking volume? Because, you know what I mean? Is it going to impact it one way or the other, or is it just straight industry focus is going to have naturally more volume where it's going to make, life a little bit easier for everybody?
Yeah, I think it's just depending on the industry. The industry sort of drives the volume of these. So is everyone going to see a benefit from this? Yes. Will some people see more of a benefit? Absolutely. It just depends on how much you're having, like Matt was saying, how much you're having to trace back and try to figure out how did things get applied.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And another one that people are they're just so excited for. I mean, let's just hit the enhanced.
I'm excited for
AR,
this one.
Enhanced AR, enhanced AR statements. What's going on there? What does it look like? What does it mean for people? More importantly,
So this is, again, it's going to seem like a small change, but it's sort of a nice ease of use change. So two big things they've added to AR statements and options they've added here. The first is running balances. So for those of you who maybe have not ever dipped into the printed document templates and actually customized statements, this was something that you could do before, but you had to work at it. You had to kind of use some calculations and things with your merge fields. So it's probably something the average user wouldn't get into. However, on the configuration side as a partner, we would see that. Now they've added a standard field that just does it. So it's literally more of a drag and drop experience in the printed doc template. You simply add the field to your template and it's going to work. The second big thing, and this is not going to apply to everyone, it's back to that sort of industry thing, but this is currencies. And so they've added all of the default currency symbols. So for those users who are in a multi-currency environment, previously, maybe it wasn't always obvious what currency you were actually issuing the statement in, what the invoices had been in. Now it's going to show up by default. So you'll be able to tell the currency of all the transactions.
Well, what I find so important about that is Sage's continued push as delivering Intacct as that global flagship product, and these small changes really provide a lot more clarity when we're working it. So if you have a team in the UK and a team in the US and they're operating within the same instance of Intacct, but this kind of nuance isn't handled, there can be confusion that happens within those teams. And so I think that's a big step. And what I always want to bring this back to is like these are all really community driven updates that we're getting, that Sage really listens to their partners, really listens to their customers about what challenges that they have. And even these small tweaks go a long way in our ability to be successful using the product.
And to elaborate on what Matt said, he mentioned the community. As Sage Intacct users, as Sage Intacct partners, we all get access in the community where folks can go out and put ideas, put questions, and even some of these ideas get voted on and they get implemented into the product. So I'm actually not sure if any of the features that we talk about today were voted on products. I may need to go back and look.
Is there any kind of, just off the top of your heads, voted on versus not, just historically from the releases, is there kind of, is it 50-50? Is it, is it 90-10? I'm curious because I honestly never even thought about that before.
I've never tracked it. They usually put, if you look in the release notes, which Doug apparently doesn't like to read. So
I can't read. There's a difference.
At the top of the note, it'll say, this idea came from you or something like that. And so you'll actually see when you open up the release note for a specific topic, whether it was an idea from the community. I've never tracked to see what the percentage is, but I know every release, there's at least a few that came from the community.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I do know that the roadmap of how Intacct works, and generally in any kind of software, is you have certain goals around capability statements, but you're also listening in that community, in your users, and figuring out which things are going to be relative to those kind of feature focuses that they have, that they want to drive. So even some of the changes that happen, they may not say that it came from a vote or something of that nature, but it is very much driven by the overall community, because what's their job from a software company? It's delivering us a product that we believe in and we evangelize.
And to bring it back, so enhancements to AR statements, that was an idea that came from the community.
There you go.
And now I really want to go back like a couple years through all the releases and be like, all right, how many actually came from the community directly versus were just influenced?
Hey, wait, is there anyone from Sage listening? I mean, you can just send it to us. I bet you have all that data readily available.
I'd
There we go.
prefer
Nice.
Doug to actually do this homework, come back with a spreadsheet. I don't think I've ever seen a spreadsheet emailed from Doug anyway, and see if he can actually make sense of this.
You couldn't handle my spreadsheets, man. I honestly don't believe you could. I really don't, which is okay. And also, I love the amount of free time that you think I have in my life with a newborn. So this is exciting stuff. Moving on. So strength of financials. Obviously, again, we can go deeper and deeper into this, but to in the sake of everyone's sanity, let's move on a little bit to the control and compliance portion of this. So, Matt, you want to give us a quick overview there, or do you want to kick it directly to the actual expert on the call, Karen?
I mean, there's a reason we bring an expert. I mean, come on.
There we go. The good news is this is a pretty quick one. There wasn't a ton in this section. So, Karen, basically, do you want to hit the only notable component here, the 1099 filing?
Yeah, so not a lot of big updates here, you're right. But a timely one that I want to point out to everyone is definitely 1099s, right? So the IRS recently, if you're not aware of this, you probably should be if you're in the accounting space, but they've changed their rules so that if you have 10 or more 1099s, you have to e-file. Back when I started, again, we won't say when, it was like 250. So it's a massive change for requirements to e-file. So what Intacct has done in sort of in response to that is they've got a partnership with a company called Tax Bandits. And so there's a seamless integration between Intacct and Tax Bandits. Essentially in Intacct, you just go click a button when you're ready to push your 1099 information over to Tax Bandits, and they are able to handle the filing and the printing and all of that for you. So I think it's a really critical thing, especially right here at the end of the year. We're almost to 1099 time. Important to go out there and go ahead and get your Tax Bandits account set up. Make sure you have everything that you need in Intacct ready for that, so that when the time comes, it's really a seamless experience.
And so it's as easy as pressing a button.
Have you ever used Tax Bandits outside of this new integration?
No, I had never used them before this integration
Okay.
existed.
I hadn't.
But we've got quite a few clients now using them, and I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different products out there. I'm not. There's no negativity about not using it. I just there was a time when we used a product called Greatland. There was a 1099 tax or something like that product. There's a handful of these products that do this kind of thing. I just didn't know if you had any prior experience before this new rollout.
Yeah, I mean, Tax Bandits is the most convenient one now since it's sort of built in.
Yep.
But if you go out to the Intacct marketplace, there's a number of other ones out there, like Tax 1099 is definitely one that's been around for a while. It may not be quite as easy in integration, but there's still other ones out there. So for whatever reason you don't like Tax Bandits, there are other options.
Now, is this just an integration, or and you may or may not know this, or is this an acquisition that Sage has done? Do we know where that kind of falls out?
My understanding is this is just an integration. Because Tax Bandits has not been white labeled or anything like that I've heard.
Okay.
So,
But you never know. Sage is acquiring white labeling companies all the time.
Well, and just be clear on it, white label and the acquisition is definitely lockstep. They acquired, now became AR automation and inbox and so forth. Where like the Donor Perfect is that kind
It's a
of
white label.
is kind of like white label component.
And also, any VARs on the call, the lockstep folks, I'm working with, I think his name is Austin. He's great with AR automation. He gets me things in a timely manner. He's great to talk to. He's great to introduce to your customers.
What's his last name?
Austin Riddle.
Okay. All right.
Hope he listens. I just really just name dropped him. I gave him a huge compliment.
I got to say, yeah, we'll send you that sponsorship plug, Bill, real quickly here. So listen, the tenant, I'm curious to see how that plays out. Honestly, this is going to be a significantly larger portion of individuals who have to deal with that this year, which I'm sure will go smoothly. It just always does, because that's just, December to April is always a fun time for everybody to deal with this. So not a ton there, again, in the control compliance portion, but the platform efficiency. Karen, anything notable in that zone that you think we should have?
Actually, probably my favorite thing that we had on the list to talk about today is the lists that Intacct has, the list views. So this has been around for a while, but they're making new updates to it every single release, and that is the new beta list views. So if you haven't seen these, they're available in a few different places. Customers and vendors, especially, is where I use them the most. There's still an opt-in feature, but these new lists are incredible. So I think list views to me is something that's always underrated in any solution, because it's actually really important how you get in and find things in the solution. It's one of the things you're going to use the very most in any solution that you're in. These new list views really just take it to the next level. They are drag and drop capable, so you can move, resize. You can easily filter in all sorts of different ways. You don't have to go through a wizard to customize your view anymore. Now there's a simple drop down to add columns. And then they've also got what's really neat is a side-by-side view. So you can have your list view, your lists over on one side. When you click into that, you actually get the record opened on the other side of the screen. And so if you're making updates, like 1099 updates, for example, with vendors, you can have your list and the screen right there very easily without having to click back and forth. So I think it's something that's underrated, but a really critical and important new feature.
It goes back to efficiency, right? I mean, it goes back to easily navigating across a platform. It's about seeing information side by side, really sort of, ease of use, speed of solution in my mind.
And Karen, similar to kind of the last features that you went over, is there any specific industry or subset of users that this is going to benefit or impact greater than others, or is this pretty much just everybody wins across the board?
I think this is really going to be great for everyone. I mean, I don't know if I have a single client who doesn't have vendors they have to pay and manage. So, as it rolls out to additional list views, what I foresee with this, what they've done with major changes in the past, is right now it's an opt-in beta, but as they get additional views available, it's going to become the default and you have to opt out. And then eventually the old ones are going to go away. So I think no matter what, it's something that people are going to have to adjust to. And I think it's actually fantastic they let people get in at this early phase and start getting used to it, learning the new feature, and being able to actually provide feedback right there on that feature to improve it.
Is this something you think is going to impact kind of the sales process as well? Or is this just something that, hey, listen, once we're implemented and off the ground, we can make these
Wait,
tweaks?
let me take this one.
Please.
So, Karen, one thing you need to know about Karen and I's relationship, we work together on all of our deals. I'm the sales side, Karen is the technical demo piece. And whenever we show the list views to our clients, their eyes get really wide and they really enjoy seeing how Sage is making enhancements in the software. But they enjoy it because the previous list views, because we show both, they see the change and they see how it can benefit them.
And again, so like when you're in the sales, the front end process, are you finding that resonates more with certain businesses, professionals, industries as opposed to others, or is it again kind of a catch-all? Everyone's pretty pumped about that.
I think everyone's pretty pumped. Karen and I work across many different industries, and I think we've gotten the same feedback from everybody.
So Karen, it's very clear that the three of the other bozos on this call know nothing about the actual release notes or Sage Intacct in general. So industry insights. Do you want to give us the 50,000-foot overview? Because again, I'm sure we could probably spend a good hour here. There's a lot to go through, but if we're looking at just the core components, what should people be paying attention to, and how is it going to impact some of the users?
Yeah, great question, because there's a lot in industry insights this time, and so it's a little hard to sort of narrow down to what we want to look at.
Yeah.
We picked out kind of 4 major feature releases that I think are really important. The first one that is something that actually is not really new to the product, but is going to be new to a large segment of users, is going to be retainage. And so if you ever worked in the construction industry, retainage is a really big deal because it can be difficult to track. Intacct has had it in the construction space for years now. So both for AP and AR, they've got retainage built in. What they're doing now is I think they've realized that a lot of other project-based industries also need retainage. So they're actually going to move retainage out of construction, and it's going to be available for anyone who has the project and grants SKUs, those modules. So I think that's really important because we work a lot in the construction industry, but I also work a lot in what I call construction adjacent fields. And so maybe they aren't actually doing the construction, but they work with construction companies all the time. And that's something I think is really important for them because they often don't need those construction features except for maybe retainage. So from an ability to be able to sell them the right product, get them the exact fit that they need without killing their budget, I think that's going to be a really important feature.
I'm thinking like
And
engineers.
What other industries do you see are kind of generally, I don't want to say missing that feature now, but could benefit from it outside of construction?
Places like engineers, architects, surveyors, those type of fields that, like I said, they're project-based fields often, but they're not doing the construction. So they're not using things like the project contracts or some of those other pieces that are very construction focused. But Since they work with construction companies, retainage is often a part of their contract.
I would think about it like this. It's like almost your professional services firms that work with construction firms or within the construction project um, really
Yep.
fit into this. And I'll be honest, I didn't know this was part of that because I don't work within the CRE side of it, but that is a very big change and a move to kind of get that type of that type of capability out into more of what we call a general use apparatus for Intacct.
Any other high level components, Karen, that really people should know about?
So I'm going to stick with construction for a minute since we're already on that topic, maybe. But I think WIP is a big topic, of course, in the construction industry. So WIP has been around for a few releases now, but they are continuing to make updates. And this time was actually a pretty major update to the WIP functionality. They've got a bunch of new fields that are available on the report now. They've also got some new calculations. So a really big one in the construction space is the overbuild, underbuild calculation of where do you stand on your billings versus what you've actually spent on the project and done on the project. They've got a new calculation for that, and they're also updating it to include both year-to-date and job-to-date numbers. And so that's very important because in large projects, they often run multiple years. And so being able to have job-to-date information versus just being stuck in those accounting periods is very important from an operational standpoint. There's a bunch of other stuff that's available. You can go read the notes on this one. It's quite a long note, but a lot of the fields that are just on a project will now be able to be on the report. So maybe you want the status or the type of project, the customer manager. All those things are now available to put on the report as well, just to make it more flexible and easy for customers to use.
So can I ask, so the multi-year component then, how were companies working around that before?
So it's been a few iterations on how we've handled that in the past. A few years ago, Intacct released a reporting period called Inception to Date. That was a game changer, actually, because now we can actually run financial reports and different reports for literally the entire time that you have data in the system. So Inception to Date means every single thing in the system. So that's what we have always been using. But this WIP report is not a report that you can easily go in and change because it has all these calculations built into it. So we're really sort of stuck with what Sage is providing on that report. So adding that job to date was not something that we could have easily done on those reports. We can also, if you have other reporting periods you need to report on, you can also create custom periods. So we see this a lot kind of in the nonprofit grant arena. Where you're working with maybe grants that have odd periods that don't match up, you can actually kind of create periods that you need. So that's another way we've handled it in the past.
One of the things that I like to mention here is like anybody's listening that's in the construction world is going to know this, but those people that maybe not or thinking about it, over under billing is such a important component of management within the construction field because a lot of times what you're being asked to do in the construction field is by the 20th of the month project what you're going to bill out through the end of the month. But at the end of the month, you might have done more or less than what you've done, and that over under is that balancing of that portion as a component to it. And so when we talk about having a system that operates this, I remember doing all this kind of stuff on spreadsheets and having these workbooks that were like these huge things, and I probably shouldn't say this, but probably not very accurate because it was so manual. Just trying to manage this, and larger construction firms are managing hundreds of projects at any given time, and it's very impactful from an actual reporting perspective, understanding where you are as an organization, especially in an accrual world of knowing, hey, what is the progress today of the work that I've done? What have I put in? What is remaining? Because that's how we manage change orders. That's how we make sure that we're going in here and making sure there's not scope creep and things of that nature. So having this type of capability and a continued enhancement, and this is what's going to really turn Intacct into a leader within the construction space. And if it isn't already, and again, I don't work in that side, but I know the complexities that come into it. And that's a game changer for organizations when it comes to management of those projects.
And Karen and I just got back from Sage's sales kickoff, but they put a major backing behind construction. I think it was 70% of the available market belongs to construction. So I think in the future, whether you're a customer, whether you're a VAR, whether you're someone who's just looking at Sage Intacct, you're going to be seeing a lot more advertising in the construction space.
Well, construction is the fastest growing industry for new client acquisition within Sage currently, from a percentage perspective, and it is one of their 5 pillar industries globally. So that's just me saying, yes, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, there's a really large install base of people that are on the older Sage products, and that's what we're sort of seeing now. Construction's one of those industries that lags behind. You have leading edge and bleeding edge. They're like the people that are at the very end of the chain, and not wanting to change. I think there's a major push now in that industry, and so as people are ready to move off of things like the Sage Timberline, or way back there, things like Master Builder and all of those
Yep.
products that have turned into things like Sage 300 and 100C. That is going to now be moving to Intacct, and a lot of the learnings that Sage has, they've been in the construction industry for decades. They're now using that to make Sage Intacct a really premier construction product.
Who would be the number one competitor to in the construction space? In your opinions?
Acumatica has some construction capabilities. If we're talking like apples and apples, I would say Acumatica. NetSuite, they don't really play in the construction space.
I'd argue that your biggest competitor
Deltek,
runs
maybe?
into being connected apps. So like
Yes.
like Intacct bought Procore, but Procore was it Procore or Procon? Anyway, was
Corcon.
Procon. What
It's now Sage Construction Management.
but for the longest time that was a individual construction management software that integrated with financial softwares, and especially in the smaller space, but even some of the larger organizations, you're seeing a lot of companies that are buying those kind of third-party applications and attaching them to non-construction related financial systems.
Yeah, I think that's where Sage is doing a great job, actually. But if you go and look out, and Emily's mentioned the marketing in the construction industry, they're actually marketing to construction not just in financials, but as a whole package. And so they've got pre-construction, the financial piece, and operations, and they've got solutions for each of those pieces that are already integrated together. And so that's one of the great things I think they're doing for construction.
So, Karen, getting back to the industry insights, any other high-level features that you think are newsworthy that everybody just needs to know about?
So one quick one that I'll give, it's maybe not for everyone, but if you're in this space, I think it's going to be a really big deal, and that's the Continental utility integration that's coming out. So a pre-built integration with that tool. So if you're in the space of public utilities, so if you're doing water or gas or electric or any of those, this is going to be great. It is kind of just another one of those areas that Sage is verticalizing. So we've seen it with things like Donor Perfect and some of the other features where they're going out and making integrations with these other products. This is really important because Continental Utility handles the billing and payments. So all kind of the AR cycle. And so having that data integrate automatically into Intacct is going to be great for reporting for those companies. Now there's one more there that I think is really, sorry, Matt, did you have something
I was just
to
gonna
add?
wonder if you're supporting those type of companies at your firm, because I don't really play in that industry.
We've got a couple that they're kind of local companies here that are in that space that we're definitely looking at this integration and going to be talking with those clients. So it's not a huge market out there for these, but it definitely exists.
That's what I was going to ask. Is like, what does that addressable market even look like?
I think it's an interesting space when you get into public utilities, because you've got some places. So like where I live, so we're in Louisiana, I live in a parish. My parish has privatized water, and so it's actually another company that runs the water system. But a lot of cases, it may actually be a governmental entity that's running those. And so it's sort of a governmental, semi-governmental space that you are getting into when you look at utilities.
Interesting. Okay.
And the utility sector as a whole, like from the accounting perspective, do you find that there are just some monster firms that just eat up all that work nationwide, or is it kind of everybody patchworks it together, mom and pop? Every firm will have a small percentage coming from that zone, because obviously if you get hyper niched in certain industries or specialties, you tend to get pretty big and just focus in that one area. Are there any firms out there that you're aware of doing that, or is it kind of regionalized still?
Not really in the utility area. I think it's probably a little more regionalized. I know for governmental, probably a lot of those companies are using the big governmental accounting solutions. So there's a few of those that are out there. But we've had some success getting in there as well, especially, local, smaller places, so smaller towns and that sort of thing, that maybe they, can't afford one of the bigger solutions. And Intacct is a great fit for that smaller town, bigger than a village, but maybe not the size of a big city.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Any other features, inside the industry insights, Karen, that are notable, worth hitting?
All right, this is the one I've been waiting for, actually.
Ooh.
I saved maybe the best for last. I don't know. It's a really exciting new feature. Anybody who's been around the Intacct space for a while has probably known that employee expenses is an area that has been lacking, to put it nicely. Major release this time, though, is they are now releasing huge changes to employee expenses. Employees are now going to be able to actually email receipts into Intacct. So this is going to be similar to AP bill automation if you've used that. It has AI and machine learning built into it so that it's going to start coding those receipts and get more accurate as time goes on. And then you're going to be able to log into Intacct and actually compile your receipts into an expense report. They've added some things like being able to split expenses across different types. So a lot of really, really great enhancements in this release. And I think this one's going to continue to be a big focus going forward because it's definitely an area that Intacct has been behind in for a while.
So, do you think it'll take away market share from Expensify?
That was my question. Yeah.
I don't think we're there maybe quite yet, but I think that's the goal. So what I think is still missing, honestly, on this feature is going to be a really good app. So Intacct has not been great at getting into the app space. They have a couple of them, but they tend to be for auxiliary solutions like Sage Intelligent Time. But I think that's the piece that you really need for a good expense solution is that ability to have that app on your phone, take a picture of the receipt, do it right there in real time. Now it's not quite that easy. So it's better, definitely, than it has been in the past. But I think they are working toward that point with this release.
And I'm going to make the assumption that this is going to be kind of billed in the same way that AP automation is, where it's kind of a transactional, per inbox entry kind of point from a pricing.
So I haven't looked into pricing on it yet. So bill automation is interesting because they've actually gone away from the per transaction billing. That's not an option anymore. Now you purchase packages and then you can go over with that and have overages. I suspect it is going to be similar to that though, where it's going to be some sort of package, $200 a month or $500 a month or whatever it may be, that you purchase.
Yeah, just like bucket pricing kind of. Yeah.
That's what they've gone to with bill automation. I think they found the transaction-based billing is just too difficult for the amount of revenue you're getting out of it. Because it's very hard to track that and bill it every single month versus just selling it as a package.
Yep. And this would be interesting to see how the Expensifies and the Ramps and some of these other companies kind of address this. But I have to say I think Intacct has a pretty far way to go to really be in competition with them. Not only just because of the statement you made with app, which I absolutely agree with, but even on a pricing perspective, even on the ease of use and just you're talking about you're competing with pretty sizable organizations that's all they want to do all day is provide it, and then you don't even have the reimbursement side of it built into Intacct yet, which is another component where your Expensifies and your bills will allow you to go and then reimburse those employees right away and not have to do a separate transaction. So I think there's still gaps.
There'll always be gaps. That's why there'll always be marketplace partners. Yeah, seize the opportunity where you can.
And that's some of the things Intacct has long been great at is, like they may have a solution for it that's right for some people, but they have that open API and that ability for partners to integrate in. So it's an area, if it's not quite right for you, you can go out and find a partner that is perfect for your organization and then just integrate it in.
Yep.
I don't think there is a software program out there that quite literally is a silver bullet with anything. I mean, there's always those things that you wish they would have figured out, like all these components you just went through, Karen, here. I mean, why, 12 months ago, this would have been very helpful for so many people. And I'm sure the next release notes will say the exact same thing because, but that's what I do like about Intacct is the sense that it is that community feeling where they actually listen to the voice of the consumer, which at least my experience, has not been the same across all software platforms out there. So that is certainly something to say, nonetheless. But we can go deep and feature and talk about this line by line. But I think that's a pretty good overview of some of the core components that came out in the last notes. Karen, I know you're a listener. And we're at that point here where we have to end this thing with just an awful dad joke, and I mean bad. And I'll throw you the ball if you have one. If not, I'll take it back. But I want to put the offer out there to everybody. Do you have just a horrible dad joke?
I love dad jokes, but you put me on the spot, so I don't have one like just ready off the tip of my tongue. But tell you what, next time I'll be ready with a dad joke.
I love it. Matt, Emily, I'll throw the same offer out to two of you before I
No, y'all grilled me on my last dad joke, so I'm not.
Doug, we said this in the beginning. It's Dad Jokes by Doug.
Okay, I like it. Everyone involved, it's boring if it's just me. All right, horrible dad joke. Oh, okay. All right. What kind of a car does an egg drive?
Crickets.
A Volkswagen?
A Volkswagen. Karen nailed it. There you go. See, you do like dad
I love
jokes.
dad jokes.
There you go.
I had to
That's
think about that one
perfect.
for a minute.
Yeah, we'll put a little image up. We'll have somebody edit in a little image of an egg driving a
What I have
Volkswagen.
to say is, like, Karen, you've been like this great guest. You have all this information, and you can figure out Doug's dad jokes. I mean, you lived up to everything that you could have ever lived up to.
Absolutely.
Yes,
You should just replace
congratulations,
Matt.
Karen.
I think we should just replace Matt with you, honestly, just full time.
Honestly, let's just make it Karen's podcast.
Yeah, you can just take it from here,
Yeah.
right?
No thanks.
Yeah, you just take it from here on your
I
own.
have to have time to gain all this knowledge in between. So I'll leave the podcasting to you guys.
Well, Karen, we cannot thank you enough for joining us. Absolute delight. We'll have to bring you back if you're open to it for future release notes because, again, we need somebody who actually knows what they're talking about at sometimes on these things. So thanks you for joining us. I look forward to having you back, and we can cap it there for everybody.
Thank you, Karen.